still progressing in that career mode. And about a year and a half ago, started officially kind of as a side gig. Hopefully one day will be main gig, being a resume writer and career coach. Done it unofficially, virtually my entire career. Just always enjoyed helping people with job seeking and getting promotions, lateral moves, career transitions, whatever it might be. And so recently, last little while, I've been dabbling with AI assisted resume writing. There are pros and cons to going pure AI and pure human, and I think that a hybrid approach is the best way, especially because it can meld creativity as well as fill some of the maybe common questions and gaps that humans might have on their own, whether it be writer's block, knowing what keywords and key language to use for ATS scanners, which are the automated resume scanners, which are looking for those things, and hopefully get you past the robots and into a human's hands. So with that, we will go ahead. So introduction on each of these kind of aspects. So traditional tried and true human written resumes. Best things about having the human element is it's going to actually allow authentic storytelling. It's going to be each of you and your personality contained within the resume, really tailored to your career journey, and be able to showcase what is unique to you and going to separate yourself from the pack and the rest of the competition in this highly competitive job market. If you look at the AI side of the equation, so it can definitely help streamline things. It can help you know which keywords and tailoring the content accordingly in a much more time-saving fashion, without having to sit there and read through, hundreds or, even tens of job descriptions to figure out maybe what you want to pick out and drive home. It can also, if you are paying for the premium portion of ChatGPT, you don't need it to leverage anything we're going to talk about here at all, but you can connect to the internet through the AI advanced ChatGPT and be able to get more up-to-date kind of data-driven information. And one of the biggest drawbacks, which we'll kind of cover here in a little bit as well, is that it can be generic when it comes to if you rely solely on AI. So this is kind of a downside that we'll cover as well. And so this is one of the reasons I think that the hybrid approach is the best, melding the human creativity and storytelling with the AI kind of writer's block and identification of what you need to include. So delving into the hybrid approach, like I just said there, so the human insight, like we said, allows the personalization, storytelling, and all the narrative-driven aspects of your resume. AI looks at all the different trends, all the different learning models, and is able to pick out what you need to put into your resume. And by bringing these two things together, you can save yourself time, you can hit the keywords, and at the same time be able to tailor it to you and an accurate representation of you and a confident representation of you. I think when it comes to the confidence aspect in your resume, that is a very underrated element that a lot of resume writers overlook, because if you are not confident in your document and what you're putting out there publicly, it will show throughout the entire job seeking process. So benefits of the hybrid approach. So you have significantly improved customization because the AI will be able to analyze job descriptions, keywords, and the trends, but then you can allow your personalized touch on there, as I've said a few times. Increased efficiency. This is one of the bigger benefits. It shouldn't take you hours to write a resume anymore, or potentially even days for some people. If you are new to having to do that, I know a lot of people have gotten jobs throughout their careers through networking, and it's very common for me to get people that say, I haven't had to write a resume in 15 years. And just like anything else, it's a skill that will get rusty if you are not using it. So the AI can help brush off the rust and then save you some time. And then you can kind of come in and just put your personalized touch on the entire equation, especially fine details. One of the things I like to point out, AI is brilliant for spelling and grammar, which a lot of us may not be at. I know English was never my strong suit in school, but AI can help true that up. And then the enhanced effectiveness. So as mentioned earlier, especially since about 2019 when COVID occurred, a lot of companies have now adopted the ATS and automated resume scanners. These things were really relegated to kind of the Fortune 1000 plus large organizations for a very long time, but now small, medium businesses have definitely taken these in with the influx of applicants that have come over the last 4 to 5 years since that event. And getting past them is sort of the key to at least getting into a human's hands and then circling back to the human touch, that's how you can then appeal to the human as opposed to coming off like a robot. So it is definitely going to be much more effective having this hybrid approach. And the last one is going to be the broader skill showcase. So one of the beautiful things that we will cover in the live demo is the AI has the ability to sometimes read between the lines in your experience and maybe think to represent things that you hadn't thought about with your own skill set and your own representation. And so, like I said, it kind of helps to make sure that you are showcasing yourself fully and overcome that writer's block. And it's really making sure that you are presenting a comprehensive approach and focusing on what matters. Because I know that there's a lot of times that sometimes there might be pieces we put on our resume that may not be actually driving value and impact to somebody that is reading it. So again, merging these two provides a much more broader showcase and comprehensive fulfillment of yourself. Things to avoid in this process: over-reliance on AI. If you have no personalization and you just go pure AI, then you're going to end up with a lot more generic content. Now, you'll still have the content that you are putting in, so it's going to be somewhat unique to you, but it's definitely going to sound a lot more robotic and be less competitive and unique. So you don't want to rely solely on AI. And in my opinion, this includes going to the services that are out there that are, a lot of them now are on monthly subscriptions. They don't really allow a whole lot of personalization. They're just giving you their AI best practices. So I do think that using more of an open-ended AI like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, something along those lines, and merging the two and keeping the power in your hands is the approach to go. One of the things that AI likes to do, it loves to use sophisticated language or attempted sophisticated language and jargon. And sometimes too much of this can overwhelm the human, or again, reduce your confidence in your document. So if it's producing language that doesn't sound like you, then that's where you want to come in with the personalization. You want to use action verbs, adjectives, and descriptors that you are confident in and that are going to come through in the interview stage of the equation. So you don't want to rely solely on AI when it comes to the language. And again, just going back to the over-reliance on AI, just reiterating it a bit, make sure that you are overlooking it, not just for the personalization to you, but also the accurate representation. Again, part of the live demo is going to be having AI sort of read between the lines, maybe produce things that you hadn't thought about. And you definitely want to sift through that information to make sure that, again, it is accurate. One of the worst things you can do on a resume is fluff it to the point that you can't speak to it. And we never want to be caught in that situation at all. And one other thing to note here is privacy concerns. So one of the things when doing resume information, I always like to make sure that it's known to not put in your personal information when you're doing this. So stick to the skills, your experience, your education, these sorts of things. Make sure that if you are kind of copying and pasting from your Word document over, kind of going back and forth throughout this process, that you aren't putting your contact information in there. You don't want your name, your email, your phone number, these sorts of things, because there are still data privacy concerns. There are still data sharing. And so really sticking it to the resume information itself is key, more for your benefit. It doesn't really have an effect on the results, but it is just making sure that you are protected and you are safe throughout this process. All right. So that was potentially a lot of information because I want it in a very short amount of time, because I do want to spend as much time as we can on the live demo. But before we get to that piece, does anybody have any questions on anything I said here, comments, concerns, etc.?
Yes, Zach, I have one. You just talked about the privacy consideration. So you're saying not to put your contact information and your name and so forth on the resume. I guess you're saying wait till you've gotten your hybrid resume completed, and then you would add your information just manually.
Yeah, and it's more when you're putting the information into the AI. So I'll what the live demo is going to consist of, and I'll circle back to your question, is we're going to take some notes that might pertain to a potential candidate that's building their resume. And when you're putting those in, you want to stick to the information that's on the resume other than your contact information that you're putting into the AI generator. You don't want to put in your contact information there. So typically what I actually do is I will usually build just the very skeleton of the resume template. So I will build my contact information and then maybe a skills section, experience section, etc. And then that way, when you get the output from the AI, you can bring that over to the Word document and edit in there. So yeah, just making sure you're not putting your own information into the AI. You absolutely want it on the resume, but just not necessarily into ChatGPT or Copilot.
Right. Okay. Good.
Does
Thanks.
that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect. Ryan, I think I see your hand raised. And you are muted. I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
All right. Zachary, thank you for being here. I worked for an AI software company in the past, and I recently applied to a position that was through ADP as the kind of ATS system. And there was a checkbox involved with it. And they asked if I wanted to waive the ATS. Have you ever experienced that in an applicant situation? And what is the best practice there? Checking the box or not?
I can honestly say I have not encountered that. That must be something new with ADP, and I don't think I've seen that in the other ones like Workday or the other competitors. So I cannot speak directly to that. My gut reaction, though, if you just wanted my 2 cents, I would say that you would want to do it. Just because a lot of the reasons why companies are using the ATS is to be able to screen out, for lack of a better phrase, low-hanging fruit. And by passing the ATS, you're immediately going to probably have a leg up, I would imagine. So that would be my 2 cents on a gut reaction, but I can't say I have direct experience with that. That is new. I will have to look
Okay,
into that one. I appreciate you bringing it up.
you got it.
All right. Anything else before I maybe dive in? Switch my screen share over to ChatGPT here. All right. So I am going to swap my share over. All right. You should see my ChatGPT here momentarily. Let me know when you can see that. I see thumbs up, so that is good. Okay. So one of the things I will, I believe I have the ability to send out my slide deck at the end of all of this. The slide deck will contain the exact prompts that I'm actually going to use here. So you can use them exactly as they are verbatim. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to use most people can at least understand sales. And so I just figured sales was probably the most universal job to use for this. If we wanted to tweak with other ones, once we kind of get past the initial demo, then please let me know and we can kind of go in that regard. So a lot of people can initially, let's see, actually, I apologize. I'm going to step back. Starting with the job descriptions. So this is kind of the first place to start, is knowing what to identify within each job description you're looking at, what the current key language is, what the current key phrases and patterns and these sorts of things. So what we're going to start with is a prompt based off of that. And so again, this will be sent out to everybody, but I will read it as we go. So I'm going to put this prompt in that is essentially going to provide a process for analyzing however many job descriptions we are going to look at. So essentially this is saying I want you to analyze X amount of job descriptions. We're going to do 3 in this regard. It'll be pretty quick. And this is what we're going to do for each of them. First, you're going to ask me for the job description. I'm going to provide it. And then you are going to analyze it for keywords, key phrases, and key language. And then those are the steps that it repeats for however many you have. And then at the end, one of the key things I've learned that's really good with AI is if you're unsure of the results it's going to give, you can ask it, do you understand this? Do you understand the process? Do you understand what I'm asking? And if it doesn't, then prompt it to have you tell you how to make it more clear. So this is a great little tactic just at the end of any AI that you are doing, regardless of whether it's for the resume writing or anything else in general. So again, help you to interact with it and use it. So we're going to put this in. So it understands, and let's start with the first job description. So I have a couple different tabs here. So I have a sales consultant position that is currently open. So the key thing to note with this is stick to the actual duties, responsibilities, skills, and the overview, including the company information. Usually we'll pick out incorrect keywords, I have learned. So you want to stick to the actual job requirements. Same thing with the education space. It might throw in, for instance, in your experience bullet points, bachelor's degree randomly through your bullet points. So again, avoid that. And you can usually accurately represent your education on your own. So that piece is very low-hanging fruit that I always say to avoid. So in this case, we are literally just going to copy from the summary and overview down, bring this over into ChatGPT. And the only thing that's usually in the summary that you want to note is you don't want to include the company name, because again, it will throw this into your experience. So you can literally just remove that. And now we have, as the sales consultant, blah, blah, blah. And then it's in here again, the company name. So we'll just remove that. And then now we are good. So we will put this in. And then it will break out and tell you your keywords, your key phrases, and then some of the language that's a little bit more verbose. So this is why we break it down into all three of these categories, so that you're not just hitting the singular words, but also this will help you again when you're circling back for the human element. So if there are things that you want to incorporate that maybe it didn't by default, this also helps with the writer's block portion. You're like, oh, yeah, I do need to include pursuing new prospects. I didn't have that in my initial notes to myself. So this is a great tactic for that. And we're just going to repeat this for these three job descriptions. And there's no company name here on a quick glance. And we can remove the drug screen and the driver's license as well. Again, we want to try to avoid it inputting information that is highly unnecessary.
Zachary, real quick question.
Shoot.
You're using Chat GPT 4. This will work with Chat GPT 3.5 free version.
Yes, it absolutely will. Mine just defaults to 4. My apologies, but yes.
Thank you.
Yep. And we will do this last one here. All right, this one has a lot of information. All right. All right, so we're gonna do the same thing we did before, where we kind of remove some of the information, like again, driver's license, drug screen, etc. We don't want it to artificially throw that into our notes about ourselves. I think I saw that somewhere else as well.
Yeah, the education is in there too. I think you said to ignore that.
Did I skim past that one?
Yeah, it says bachelor right there.
There we
under that.
go.
Yep.
Great catch. Joys of moving quickly. Teamwork makes the dream work. Okay, so now from here, like I said, so this can be, if you're starting from scratch, you can review this information, like I said, to initially maybe get past your writer's block and jot down some quick notes. And this is how we're gonna, and what we'll do next is we're gonna have it translate notes into actual resume content. So if you are, like I said, if you are starting from zero, or if you maybe have some, but you're just kind of like, I don't really know what else I might need to add. Again, review this information that it's output and use it for your idea generation. So are there any questions about this piece, kind of how to do it, have it make it analyze the job descriptions and why we're doing keywords, language, and phrases? Nope. Okay. So next, we're actually going to have it go straight into bullet point crafting. So if you think about a resume, high level format, right? You have your contact information, you might have a summary or some achievements, and then a skills section, maybe education and experience. It's actually best, I have found, to kind of go bottom up and start with the experience. And then from the experience, you can actually have it then do your skills and then do your summary as the kind of the final how-to. So with that, what we are going to do is same concept here. So we have a prompt that is saying, please rewrite these bullet points if you have ones already, or there is one that if you don't have bullet points, but maybe you just have notes, which is what we are going to have here. So based on this resume experience, can you write X amount of bullet points? So we can plug in our number here. So we'll just say, I want you to write 8 bullet points that align with the 3 job descriptions. So you want to tell it to look at all of the different job descriptions to try to create the hybrid approach. Easy example of this, kind of sticking into the sales realm. If you look at job descriptions, there might be the same concept, but using multiple terms. So something easy with this, you might have key accounts or VIP accounts or strategic accounts, things like this, where they're varying language, but they all mean the same thing. So that's kind of why we wanted to look at all of the job descriptions for the language to incorporate. Thing to remember about AI is if you don't give it the clear direction, it will make assumptions. So you want to make sure that you are creating its scope of what it is doing and looking at. So we will then paste in some notes. So I don't have this part shared, but I literally just have a Word document, or sorry, a Notepad document, actually, even more basic. With some quick notes about someone that might be a sales professional. It's going to be quite a bit of notes. You do not have to have this much, but using this person, right? So this person took clients and got them funding. They typically bought this $37 object. They gave clients advice, helped them start an LLC. So like I said, a lot of this information may not be relevant, and that's kind of the purpose, is you want to give it as much as you can about yourself. So I do recommend looking at the initial output of keywords and phrases and just kind of give it the gross amount of information, not the net amount of information, and let it almost determine what is important and what associates. What this prompt is saying as well, I didn't finish the end of it, so it's creating me 8 bullet points, looking at the 3 job descriptions, and it's incorporating the identified keywords, phrases, and language, but also following best practices. It's being action-oriented, compelling, and it's being an honest representation of yourself. So it is sticking to the notes that we are putting here for the time being. And so we will go ahead and put this in.
Zach, is it really important to add the word honest? I mean, if you forgot that word honest, would it just make stuff up?
It might. So like that's the thing, is it might just try to artificially incorporate things from the job description that may not directly apply to you. Ironically, that's something we are going to do as a next evolution to this. This to me is just a great starting point, is sticking to what you have, what you know, and what you're providing it, having it tailor accordingly. And then we can kind of see maybe what it sees reading between the lines, kind of as I mentioned earlier. You can replace honest with accurate or something like that, but you want to make sure that it's sticking to what we provide it. Does that make sense? All right.
Absolutely.
So we have here 8 bullet points. Best practices, right? They're all starting with a nice action verb: strategically developed, implemented, provided, achieved, led, conducted. So that's great. And it usually will also always stick to sort of the action, task, and result, right? So strategically developed this, did a consultative sales approach, and understood the client's financial needs. End result on this one. So implemented client retention strategy by solving complex issues in fulfillment. So this is the task we did. Result was we enhanced customer loyalty and built trusted relationships. So we come out with a pretty good baseline here. So from here, you could have it. This is where you can actually have AI do some of the personalization. So maybe here you want to make it, maybe you're like, you know what, these things are way too long. When you put them into your Word document, they're 3 or 4 lines long in a bullet point. This is obnoxious. So you could sit here and say, you know, make the bullet points more concise. And so it will significantly shorten them. So this is where you can at least have some of the tweaking at play here as well. You could also do it yourself. But like I said, this is just our good starting point that we would now bring this over, copy paste it into our Word document resume. And before we got into the human element side of the tweaking. I could repeat this for more notes, but in the essence of time, there are the other resume sections I do want to get to. Are there any questions about this aspect? How to have it craft your bullet points, why we're having it scoped down this way? Any other additional questions besides Kim's?
Actually, Zach, I have a question. It's Janine.
Yeah.
How do you, is there a ChatGPT that's free to use?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. There absolutely is a free account. The quote unquote only downside, I believe it was Dan that asked it earlier, is it uses an older version, 3.5. Still perfectly valid. You do not need the 4.0 or the paid version to leverage these exact prompts, to be honest. These prompts for me, I actually crafted in 3.5, used them in 3.5 for quite a decent chunk of time, and have just been messing with 4.0 recently because, and the main difference is while 4.0 at its baseline is a little bit better, it is connected to the internet. So we can actually go out and research and get the current opinions and current best practices as well. But it's not like 3.5 is at a date. 3.5 is being regularly updated as it is as well.
And you could just like Google that. Like, how do you get to where you need to be to use 3.5?
I can put it in the chat if you want, Janine. It's just a URL that you can click on and get started.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Perfect. And any other questions before I maybe move on to how to have it do skills for us?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Thanks, Zachary. So these bullet points took your notes and crafted statements of action and result, but it didn't do it by company. And so is there any tips or tricks that you can give us that would, focus this more on the per company that I've worked for? And that's the first part of the question. Second is, you gave it notes, but it took those notes and combined them. So each bullet point might have pieces, parts of things that you've done in different companies, correct? And so how do you make sure that it's, kind of more accurate to what you did? So for instance, I had a lower level job, then I had a higher level job, and I don't want to crunch all that stuff together. I want to list it by company.
Yeah, the easiest way around this, it's a great question, is to actually do one company at a time, right? So when you are creating your notes, create it on a per position basis. Again, keep the scope of ChatGPT into the scope you want it to work with. So as you are kind of creating your initial quick jot down of notes, if you were VP, of food manufacturing or VP of account management in that realm, do your VP first, then do the director, then the sales representative, for instance. Whatever it is, just do one position at a time. That's the best way to do that. And yes, even with the notes, it will merge some. Typically, I find it actually merges them fairly logically. It's not necessarily going to merge a sales event with office management duties. It's going to know to keep those in separate actions, unless there actually is a correlated result and a correlated behavior. So that would be my advice on how to do that is when I'm doing resumes, for myself or people inside of my network, That's absolutely how I approach it, is just do it a singular job at a time.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense, thank you.
Zach, I have another one too. I don't, and
Yeah.
you know, your type font's pretty small, so I'm not sure it was there,
Oh.
but you know, no, that's okay. That's okay. I don't know if in your notes, did you, you know, because some of these bullets are pretty generic, and one of the things we always counsel people is try to, you know, show results, right? Show numbers, show percentages, and so forth.
Yep.
I don't know if your notes had those, or does ChatGPT just kind of genericize all the bullets?
The notes did not have that,
Okay.
to be completely fair, but let's see if my notes did have any for this particular one. All right, so I'll give it a quick second set of notes where the key quantified achievement here was about client retention. And it was the amount of saves that the person had per month.
Okay.
And we'll see if I'm going to be proven wrong in a live demo. But it typically takes out the quantifications and does them very well. But what I do like about it as well, again, this is a hybrid approach. You are absolutely correct that some of these are generic, but then when you do look at them, again, it might be that writer's block. So again, if we go back to that first one where we said, you know, enhance loyalty and build relationships, oh, maybe you have a retention metric that you didn't think about. So again, it kind of goes back to that aspect of, oh, I didn't quantify the achievement when I put it in there. I'm going to quantify it with my hybrid approach. But let's see here. I'm going to bring in another set of notes. There's a bunch of other information here because I want to actually show you if it's going to pick it out accordingly. And of course, I have some typos, as notes do. I'll actually be curious if it can give us 8 notes out of this. All right, so we have 2 quantified achievements here, right? So we increase weekly sales from 2 to 20 within every 30 days, as well as increase saves by 8 per month to 8 per day. So again, if you do throw in revenue percentages, you do have quantified numbers, it will pick that information out and craft a bullet point around it accordingly. So it all depends on what your notes are able to do. A lot of times you might not have quantitative information. So I do like that it will give you a qualitative result typically anyways, out of an assumption to at least be able to deliver a result. And if you read that qualitative result, then you can translate it. Oh, like I was saying with the loyalty. Oh, okay, I do have this thing that I can quantify.
Right. Good. Thank you.
Not a problem. Anything else before I move on to skills? All right, I will take silence as acceptance. Okay, so going on to skills. So a lot of people might struggle with what skills to incorporate. I like to have ChatGPT give me more skills than I'm going to represent on my resume so that I can pick and choose, and they will all be correlated to the given job descriptions. So what we are going to do here, oops, if I knew my shortcuts. All right, so very simple prompt of please give me a list of X amount of top skills. We'll do 30. 30 skills demonstrated in this resume that align with the 3 previous positions. And then what you're going to do is provide the bullet points that we have. So we'll just do both sets that we have here. We'll scroll up to this first one. And we are going to directly copy paste it in. And the second one. The other thing that is in here as well is I typically like to have it, the list should have the most impactful and relevant earliest in the list. So that's just something that I personally do for my personal preference. You don't necessarily need to do that within the prompt, but it will review all of this and then give you your potential skills. And these are going to be, if you really want to boil it down at the end of the day, a skills list is really a keyword list. It's actually probably the most brilliant section to accomplish the ATS checkbox. If you, in my personal opinion, because that's all it is. It's a list of keywords. It'll check the ATS box and really get you past. You can format your skills list a bunch of different ways in order to try to get as many in there as you can. Two common approaches that I like to do would be either a columned scenario, so that way you can fit a little bit more, or the other one, if you are familiar with kind of using the bar notation, as I call it. So let's say I'll just type it here in the chat and hopefully this comes through. So if you wanted to do strategic business development and then do a bar separator and then do another one, this allows you to get a lot within a single line as well. I also do recommend to categorize your skills section. So again, if we're sticking with sales, then maybe we want to have a sales section, we want to have a customer service section, and then maybe finally a communication section of skills. It takes up somewhere between probably 6 and 8 lines on your resume, maybe even a little bit less, but you could actually probably incorporate all 30 of these. Going back to the scoping question or scoping scenario, we could have this scope to a specific type of skills. Again, if we are going to categorize. So we could use that same prompt over again, but say, give me only the top 10 leadership skills. Give me the top 10 sales skills, these sorts of things. So again, you can adopt this accordingly based off of what you want to get out of it. But this at least gives you that gross list. Again, I'm always about a funnel, start broad, narrow down. And so this is the approach from here. So this is how you can have it give skills directly based off of your experience, making sure it's not pulling things extraneously, it's not pulling things inaccurately, so on and so forth. Any questions on skills, or fairly straightforward for this one? All right. So what we are going to do here, so I'm actually going to paste in a little bit more form of a resume. Meaning, so at this point, we have a skill section and we have experience. So I'm not going to copy and paste out of here because I want it to be able to delineate for the next prompt. But the next prompt is actually having it craft your summary. So I am just going to pull up a resume on my end. And this one will not be sales oriented. My apologies, but imagine that we have skills and experience. The prompt that we're going to do for this one is, also, you don't need to be polite to ChatGPT, but I am. I like to say please and thank you. I know it sounds really dumb. It doesn't have feelings, but hey, reinforces politeness on our own parts sometimes. So what we're saying here is craft me a professional resume summary that's unique, compelling, and intriguing. It really should be your intention grabber. So I always like to say intriguing, compelling, because it might throw in some of those metrics and things like that. And unique, because again, we don't want generic. So these little qualifiers can help. You can also mess with this a little bit. Something that I found that's very interesting is you can change the tone of it. So you could say it's unique, compelling, and intriguing with a blank tone. So you could say a professional tone, a mentorship tone. You could even have it mimic somebody. Let's say you're a big Tony Robbins fan. You could even say in a Tony Robbins-like tone, these sorts of things. So if there is a certain underlying tone there that you want to deliver, you can do that as well. And again, we want it, the summary it produces to analyze or to go along with the previous job descriptions. Actually, I'm going to slightly pivot on my side for a second, because since we want it to align with the job descriptions, we do want it to be sales oriented. So let me just pull up a different resume here. Okay. So many windows. All right. So now we're going to paste exactly what we have in our resume here. So here's some bullet points that I crafted, dates, positions, etc. And then skills. So that this is where I was leveraging the bar notation scenario, like I was saying. So you can craft sales skills, business communication and leadership, so on and so forth. So everything we've produced thus far, we wanted to have a summary for. So this is going to be probably, in my opinion, one of the more hybrid parts of this AI crafting scenario. So right here, so this would be a summary that you can then use to base off of. Maybe you want to shorten it. Again, maybe you want to deliver a specific message. So you can say, you know, again, I like to be polite sometimes with ChatGPT. So please be more concise. And deliver the message of my sales success to a greater degree. So again, you can kind of tweak this accordingly. And it did shorten it a little bit, not too much. But again, summaries are something that are going to be very, very personalized. But this is really the prompt to do that. And so now we have completed a summary, a skill section, and experience, which really is the heart of your resume if you really want to boil it down. Because after that, you kind of have your optional sections. You know, if you do want to showcase your volunteering or your community service, or again, your education, you know, maybe at this point you're 20 years into your career, your degree doesn't matter, your degree's in something else entirely. Maybe you need it on there to get past that particular part. But that is what we are looking for. Before I maybe dive into the two slightly more nuanced prompts, are there any questions on the summary piece? Like I said, I imagine this one will be the most tweaking.
I got one. If you ran something like this and did the same thing and ran it through some of the ATSs,
Yep.
what are the likelihood or percentages of you getting passed through and making the cut? Do you know?
Actual percentages, I don't. But I have had high success with this, I can say, with this overall method and these prompts.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is something that I do use in my business on a fairly regular basis and then tweak to the individual client that I'm working with. So like this hybrid approach is actually what I do in my business by and large, if you want me to be fully transparent about it. And, you know, I do have over the last year and a half, about a 97% placement rate with people I work with on first attempt. The remaining ones after that, we might have to do one additional modification. That additional modification is also purely human. I usually won't leverage AI for additional revisions. I will leverage myself and the client that I'm working with to really make sure that we're tailoring something a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Zach, to piggyback on Pete's question there, could you prompt it to make sure that the resume will go through an applicant tracking system?
Specifically calling out ATS, I have not. That's why I like to do it more to the job descriptions. And ironically, one of the final things we're going to do here is actually having it do a final check on all of the information to the job descriptions we initially had it analyze.
Okay, but I like, I know, for example, that you know, some of the colleges, when AI first came out, they, you know, students were using those to write their papers and such, and so schools were using applicant tracking, or they were using systems to check and see if it was AI written, right? So I guess my same point is there not a you know, a way to to prompt, you know, or to make it applicant tracking, you know, to where it would pass, or you know,
Well,
from a prompt standpoint.
I am perfectly okay with trying to do it right now. Why not? So just to give you an idea, what the next prompt that we would do is saying, is the following resume optimized for the 3 previously analyzed job descriptions? If so, tell me it's fine. If not, with minimal rewrites, because we like what we have, put the changes in bold. So let's see what happens if we tweak this one and say, is it optimized for ATS systems? I don't mind trying new things in front of people. Why not? I mean, that's kind of the beauty of AI in the day that we're living in, you know, is I very much describe this entire process as an artistic science. You know, the AI is very science side of it, and the human side is the artistic side. So I'm going to take a fully crafted resume here. So it's the one that I just used and had it analyzed. So here's our experience, our skills. It's going to have a different summary, but we have a summary as well. So let's see what it says. Okay, so it says that there can be some additional optimizations. No. So it can run through, make some tweaks. What I find interesting is it doesn't look like this is where AI sometimes falls down, and why a hybrid approach is best is it is bolding everything.
But
So
it did at least recognize the ATS, so that's interesting.
yeah, and like I said, and that would be something if I had to guess. My assumption would be the ATS optimization would probably be a much better scenario in GPT-4, just because it can actually reach out again to the internet and see what the latest ATS systems are using. I could see it being okay in 3.5, but I think trying to gear towards an ATS that it doesn't have direct insight into, 3.5 might have some more faults with a prompt like that. And that's one of the reasons I focus on the job descriptions we give it, because that works in 3.5 and 4, because we are feeding it the entire scope of information it needs to do its job.
Right. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So any questions really on anything thus far? I know that at this point we have a resume. There's one other cool part that I like to showcase and like to have it do, which is maybe giving things that you didn't think about before. Nope. Okay. So again, we gave it our notes, we gave it the job descriptions. So now it's sticking to everything that it knows. One of the prompts that I absolutely love using is something along these lines. So based on this resume experience, can you infer new resume bullet points that demonstrate skills and responsibilities that are not currently represented while aligning with the 3 previously analyzed job descriptions? So we will use the bullet points that it was already doing. So we'll scroll back up here. Sure, we'll do the second set. Doesn't really matter. And so this is where it's going to, like I said, kind of read between the lines. It's going to look at the job description and go, what do we not have representation for? What skills do we have represented that this might actually work for you or might not? And so this is very, very, very much a hybrid approach. I would not take this information from this prompt and directly use it in any way, shape, or form. I would very much review this, see what makes sense. Maybe you can then create some notes for it and then repeat the process again, kind of starting at the beginning for your new notes based off of this information. But this is where it can kind of, again, like I said, read between the lines a bit, understand what you don't have represented in the gaps in your resume, and what is not being showcased. And again, to me, this is all about AI helping with the writer's block, not knowing what to represent, what is important and what is not. And this is just a great way to help to fill that gap. Oh, I didn't think about territory management. That makes perfect sense. I do have that. So on and so forth. And then the last one that I always like to kind of show out here for a best practice as well is bullet point ordering. This is a huge thing that I also think is incredibly underrated. General rule of thumb from my point of view is generally to have your first 3 bullet points on any given position to be the most impactful. If you look at the studies, you'll find a wide range of results, but I believe the average resume is reviewed anywhere from like 20 seconds to 2 minutes. So it's a very quick glance for all of the lovely hours that you might put into crafting your resume. And so you want people to be able to, at a quick glance, get the information that they need. And so that goes back to the formatting of having something very clean and easy to get. but also having your heavy hitting bullet points at the beginning. And so you could have it do this portion as well. And so what we can do here is we can say, based on the 3 previously analyzed job descriptions, which order would you put these bullet points in to have the most impactful experience and achievements represented earliest in the list? And so we will use the same list that we have here, and I'm curious how it tweaks it. So it's going to keep the first one and the second one. Maybe it's already in the right order. So far, we're in the same order. Nope. Okay, now it bumped one up, right? So the CRM system, it deemed more important than some of the other ones. And so this is then going to help the reorder. So this is a prompt that I really wouldn't use until you're at the very end. So after you've really done your hybrid approach, you've taken the AI information, applied your human element, your tweaks, your modifications to, again, be more representative of you, more accurate about you. And this would be sort of that end, one of the ending and final prompts that you would use. Again, to just make sure that you're delivering the most impact as quickly as possible in your resume. And that is really the live demo. Because at this point, we have our bullet points ordered in the correct direction. We are incorporating the language. And this is what I mean from the AI perspective, at least the end of the demo. And so after this, like I said, you'd be taking this information, putting it into your Word document, your format, your template, whatever you have, and making your tweaks from there and use those last 2 final prompts. Is this thing as optimized as it can be? And is my bullet point order correct?
Hey, Zach,
So, yeah.
can I don't know, I feel dumb asking this question, but you said at the beginning of this presentation that you would share your slide deck.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means. I'm recording this video and I'm going to share it with everybody afterwards, but will they have something they can actually copy and paste? Is
Yeah.
that what a slide is? Okay.
Yeah. So here I can, I will go back to my PowerPoint real quick. Maybe.
Maybe the real question is, are the prompts included in your PowerPoint? I guess that's the real question.
Yeah, that
They-
is what I'm.
They are indeed, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
So
Then we're good.
yep, so we're back to the PowerPoint here. So here's the job description analysis prompt. Here's your
Yes.
bullet point crafting prompts,
Okay.
your skills list, your resume summary, and then your final content check and bullet point reorder.
Beautiful. That's what I thought you
And
meant
then-
by slide deck, but then I thought maybe
Yeah.
ChatGPT had a different, was
No.
another use of, so perfect. Thank you.
Oh, and I forgot at the end spelling and grammar.
Right. That's perfect. Very good. Outstanding.
So very, very straightforward. And like I said, we didn't showcase any of the human side here, but I feel like the AI side is really the piece to demo, and then you can tweak to yourselves individually or uniquely.
Very good information. And so different than what we've seen so far. So this is really great, especially because again, it's very practical, I mean, everyone here, once they get your PowerPoint, can just replicate what you've done and build from that. So that's awesome. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Yeah, do you have anything else you want to share before we wrap up here?
I don't, unless anyone has any questions. I mean, that's the last thing is I want to make sure from a Q&A perspective, everybody
Sure.
has their questions answered. I'm very much in line with your message of teaching people to fish versus just giving you the fish. So if there's anything you don't understand, I'm more than happy to shed some more light. And I appreciate all the questions throughout.
Yeah, I think you've wowed us.
Yeah, you've left
I mean,
everybody speechless and
Yeah,
given
I
us a
mean-
lot of homework.
Yeah, and maybe if we followed up in 3 days, people, our heads would stop spinning. We'd say, "Oh yeah, I got another question here." But no,
Right.
that's awesome. Go ahead, Ryan. You had something?
Yeah, I have one question. So the ChatGPT 4 is a paid subscription, correct?
Yes.
Okay, clarified on that. And then secondly, have you noticed any kind of glaring differences between 3.5 and 4, other than the fact that you said there's the ability to comb the internet with 4?
Honestly, I haven't. I still do most of my work in 3.5 in this regard. Just because there hasn't been a whole lot of, honestly, in my opinion, an experience resume change in the time frame of 3.4 to 4's or 3.5 to 4's release. So the internet isn't providing a lot of benefit yet. So the reason I do most of my work in 3.5 is because it's faster, because it doesn't have to probe the internet. It's not doing those queries. So just from a time savings perspective, 3.5 is a little bit better. However, I do think, maybe circling back to Michael's question, one of the ones he was alluding at with the ATS is I do not think we are far away from ATS and AI merging. I think they're very much starting to do that because from my experience, ATSs are very simplistic programs. They are parsing left to right, top to bottom, looking for what is given to them, and that's it. I think they're going to get a lot more intelligent with AI. And so if and when that happens, if I am correct, I could see GPT-4 being much more beneficial in that regard.
Right. And just another technical question about 4. I mean, is a training set in the internet? I mean, is it tagged? I mean, there's got to be some kind of verification in the back end. I would imagine that you're not getting all the garbage that the internet does have on it.
I actually don't know. I think if I had to take a guess, I think limiting the scope with the prompts accordingly is probably what's going to filter out a lot of that garbage. If you wanted to, you could throw qualifiers into that. Things like, so when you are crafting bullet points, you could throw a qualifier in there of following best practices or being most effective. It's one of the reasons why when it came to, for instance, the bullet point reorder or the skills list, I throw in there to say do the most impactful and the most relevant. Things like that. Those small little qualifiers can definitely help to filter out garbage. And I always forget the exact term, but prevent the ghosting of the AI where it just, or hallucinations, I think is the technical term. As I was speaking there, it came to my mind. It would help prevent those sorts of things.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. One of the things we want to get to a survey while we still have everyone here. We've handled questions. A big thank you to Zach. Check this out, Zach. Look at how everybody's excited to see your presentation here. So thanks very much for being here. I do have a couple of things I just want to follow up on just as we wrap up. Certainly the survey, Kim's email, and you know, the opportunity for you all to help us out by liking, commenting, and sharing on our webpage. First off, let me go and pull this up. If you would take your phones and scan this QR code and take the survey while I kind of wrap things up. This survey is how you tell us how we're doing, right? How the speaker's doing, are the topics right? Is this relevant to your job search? This is really important for us to make sure we're providing the services that you want and need. So please take, I would appreciate if if everyone here would do this. I know maybe a couple of you might be using your phone, so that might be hard to do. But other than that, we would definitely appreciate you taking the survey because it really means a lot and is quite helpful for us. So hopefully, let me expand my gallery here. Does anybody need more time to do that? Are we all good? If anybody needs more time, just raise your hand. You can fill out the survey as long as you've looked at the QR code, we should be good. Okay, then this is an example of the kind of email, what the email looked like that you'll get from Kim after this meeting. It'll have a link to the recording of this meeting, which will be good. Assuming we can get the presentation, we'll include the presentation, a list of all the attendees, and links to other job groups and resources and next steps for working with Hudson Job Search. So